Welcome to Starspeak with astrologer Maureen Richmond. Here's where you'll find the latest news on what's up with the heavens. Looking for the inner message from outer space? This is your place. So join me in welcoming your host, astrologer Maureen Richmond.
Welcome, star friends. I'm Maureen Richmond, and you're listening to Starspeak on the UNX Digital Broadcasting Network, your source for everything paranormal, supernatural, and ufological. Starspeak airs every Monday night at 8 Eastern, 7 Central, 6 Mountain, and 5 Pacific. If you're looking for the inner message from outer space, you're in the right place. So sit back and get ready to enjoy a tour through the zodiac and to the stars beyond. Let's start with an overview of tonight's show. Today's date is Monday, July 31, the year 2023. Monday, July 31, 2023. Tonight, I'm going to be talking about a lot of interesting material. First off, as always, an insight into the inner workings of astrology. This time, answering the question, why should we moderns listen to the ancients? Next, we'll look at the way the energies are feeling for everybody as we move through time, especially right now this week, the full moon of August 1 and the aftermath. Next, as always, in segment 3, we'll have a look at an important figure in ufology. This week's leading ufologist is Mindy Tautfest. Yes, Mindy Tautfest and her new book, Dying to Meet Them. Yes, there's that cover of the book right there. One woman's incredible journey from NDE to UAP. Yes, we're going to be getting into that in segment 3 and how that relates to some previous historic UFO sightings and another experiencer as well. So we'll get to that in just a minute. And I'll give you a little hint before we get there. It's a well-known experiencer too. We'll get to that in segment 3. And finally, long-term trends and what star friends can expect in the coming years. So I'll be right back now with the inner workings of astrology. Hey there, star friends. This is Maureen Richmond, and you're listening to Starspeak. There's a lot of questions that people have when the word astrology comes up, right? You know, for some people, that word is an alluring, interesting, attractive, magnetic draw. For others, it's a distinct turnoff because they associate it with superstition and ignorance and benighted ways and wrong-headed thinking of the past, that the Earth was the center of the solar system. Well, you know, somewhere in the center lies the truth, of course. The word astrology comes from 2 Greek roots, of course. A-S-T-R, aster, which refers to a star, and logos, which means mind, reason, word, or even intelligent entity. Hidden in the word astrology, then, is a hint of what we're looking at here, and it goes far beyond the popular understanding of it, because the ancients gave us this word, and they gave us this word out of their experience of the night sky. Their experience of the night sky was completely different from our experience of the night sky, most tragically. We, in modern times, with the amount of light pollution that we have around our cities and our small towns and even out in the country now, do not see the grandeur, the immensity, the infinity that the ancients saw every single 24-hour cycle if the sky was clear. And there are parts of the world in which the sky was clear most of the time, affording the ancients constant and ongoing opportunities to be wowed by the extraordinary reality in which we exist. Yeah, that was a regular experience for the ancient mind. Back then, there wasn't so much running water, right? So then a little trip to the ladies' room or the men's room during the nighttime entailed an opportunity to see one of the most extraordinary things that the human being can ever see, and that is the night sky with its scintillating bed of stars twinkling in the night, more points of light than there are points of black night, more light than darkness, obviously indicative of vibrant existence all around us. Of course, the humanity of that time was only coming to understand that the earth was a sphere rotating on its own axis and hence creating night and day. It's only beginning to understand that, but there were people amongst the ancients who did understand that. Who were they? Well, they were considered high initiates. The center of initiatory teaching, of high wisdom in the ancient world was, of course, Egypt, and the great pyramids and the temples there. Egyptian wisdom was admired and sought after by the great philosophers of Greece in antiquity. They made the journey across the Mediterranean to go to the Egyptian temples and go through the disciplines that were required there in order to hear the great truths and teachings. And they did that. Pythagoras was one. He took that information back to his native Greece and worked it over and came up with what we now know as Pythagorean number theory. In the ancient Mediterranean world, it was a sky-watching society. And one of the fundamental questions on the mind of the ancients was, how do we map this incredible immensity, this infinity at which we are looking? How do we map it? How do we get a grip on it? What's going on out there? You know, it was possible for the ancient mind, merely with naked human eye observation, to determine that some of those points of light out there seemed to stay right where they were situated all the time, while others of them obviously moved. And they made the distinction between what they called the fixed stars, or the stationary points of light, and the planetes, the planets, the moving points of light, and of course, which we now know were the other celestial bodies in our solar system. All that action takes place in a small swath of the sky called the ecliptic. The ecliptic is equivalent to the plane of our solar system, the sort of the dinner plate arrangement in which the bodies of the solar system orbit the sun. It's called the invariable plane, although there is a little bit of variation in the location of those orbits. But basically, it's coherent. And when we look at that particular item through our point of view from the Earth, we call it the ecliptic. The ecliptic is seen in the southern sky for people in the northern hemisphere, and in the northern sky for people in the southern hemisphere. It's not someplace else, and it's not the whole globe of the heavens either. It's just a small area, and that was the area that the ancient mind was concerned with. It wanted to measure and delineate the action going on in that area, in that portion of the sky, the ecliptic. What should come to their aid but Pythagorean number theory, the ability to divide the one, the whole, the entirety of the circle by integers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And you can divide it and subdivide it ongoingly with other integers as well. But it was those numbers which served as the basis for the original methods of measuring space and location along the ecliptic. Number is very important in spirituality. We know that because numerology is one of the spiritual sciences. But there's another reason why that's so. It's a fundamental archetype or symbol that exists in the divine mind. And when we meditate on number, we're participating in that creative process. So that's what the ancients understood and came to recognize and embodied then in their form of early celestial observation, which became both astrology and astronomy. In that understanding, in that worldview, everything that the ancients were looking at in the sky was sacred. Of course, the earth was sacred too. This is an awareness that we have lost in modern times with our light pollution and our hurried lifestyles and our reliance upon technology. But to the ancients, the beautiful night sky was a manifestation of all that is holy and sacred and divine and important. And so their nightly meditations on the arrangement of the sky was a very important activity. Priests and advisors scanned the sky back then for a sign from the higher dimensions as to the proper course of human living. Yes, the ancient mind understood the sky as an embodiment of divine communication. That's right. They were looking for signs and communications and messages from the region of the sacred. And that's why we should listen to what the ancients have to say to us through the ancient science of astrology. Give that some thought. And I'll be right back in a moment with our consideration of how the energies are feeling currently, how the astrological energies are feeling. I'll be right back. Hey there, star friends. It's Maureen Richmond. We're talking about how the astrological energies feel here on Starspeak. Well, you know, I've said it before, and I think it's really true. Oftentimes, what we as human beings are experiencing is a reaction to very strong astrological influences that we have recently experienced, and we're kind of still recovering from that. We're kind of still getting over that, or trying to mend ourselves from what sort of slings and arrows we may have experienced during that time. And the point in time for which that is relevant right now in our current experience would be the period July 20 through 21, about 10 days ago, when transiting Mars opposed transiting Saturn. And at about the same time, the Sun and Pluto were opposed on opposite sides of the Earth. So we had two very strong oppositions working at the during the period July 20 through 21. And boy, that was a wallop. Do you remember it? I certainly do. Many people experienced situations and conditions in which they felt like they'd run up against a stone wall, a tough unforgiving, ungiving obstacle of some sort. And it was necessary at that time for many people to face hard truths. Face hard truths. What were some of those truths? Well, the ending of certain situations or the absence of something important. And it was necessary to come to a clarity and not fool oneself any further. So hard truths were faced during that period of time. And I think we're still all reeling from that a little bit and trying to get our bearings and realizing that, that's not always going to be the case. Yes, it was an important message, an important learning, but there are other aspects of life that are calling to us as well. So we're still recovering from that period of time, I think. Now, I hope everybody had a little bit more fun last week with Mercury conjunct retrograde Venus in the fun-loving sign of Leo on Thursday, July 27. That was a completely different energy from the week before, much milder and easier to manage. Which brings us now to where we are today, Monday, July 31. Right now, we're at the tail end of the waxing phase of the current lunar cycle because the full moon moment is tomorrow, Tuesday, August 1 at 1:32 p.m. Central Time. That's the moment when the sun and the moon will be precisely opposed from each other on opposite sides of the earth. That's an important point in the monthly lunar cycle for everybody, no matter what your chart is like, no matter what your sun sign is, no matter what transits you're having, no matter what transits we just had recently affecting everybody. The lunar cycle is important. Every month it generates a sine wave of experience. With the new moon, our energies are low, and then we pick up and we have much more motivation and creativity as we move towards the full moon, and then it gently tapers off and back down to the next new moon. So we're constantly going through this cycle of ups and downs with the moon. Yes, and humanity has always been affected by the lunar cycle. Nature is affected by the lunar cycle. Animals, plants, everything. It's not the same as the tidal cycles. That operates on a daily basis. It is a tide of its own type, but it grows and matures over the period of a month. So whatever we were seeded with to understand, to learn, and to explore at the new moon, we understand almost with much greater perfection and clarity and see evidently at the full moon. So for our current cycle, we got our new idea on Monday, July 17, and we have the full realization of it tomorrow on Tuesday, August 1. So that's where we are in the lunar cycle as for tonight. We're at the high point. We're at the high point of realization and understanding. If there was a lesson that was ours to learn coming off of the new moon, we've got it clearly in sight now. If there was a lesson that we were to learn, yeah, we've got it clearly in sight now. So the beginning of this little episode or chapter started 2 weeks ago, Monday, July 17, and we have it clearly in mind, objectively knowable by tomorrow, Tuesday, August 1 at 1:32 p.m. Oh, we're so close now. It's really beginning to be that very same energy. So this is a high point of understanding, of clarity, of vision and insight and knowledge of what is right or important for each one of us on our individual soul paths. Now, this week we have a few other things to pay attention to. Monday and Tuesday, that's today and tomorrow, Mars is trine Jupiter, Mars at 14 Virgo, trine Jupiter at 14 Taurus, providing a brief interval of good fortune for many people. I'm glad to say it. Yeah, it's an opportunity to get work done. It's an opportunity to identify constructive channels for future activity. That's today and tomorrow. Then we have a little bit of a different energy coming in Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. That's the middle portion of this week, while Mercury opposes Saturn. And that's what's that like? It's, well, it's a little bit like a reminder of the July 2021 Mars opposition with Saturn. It's not as strong. It's not going to hurt as much. It's not going to be as powerful a shock to the system, but it's a reminder. So if there was something that forcefully came to your attention July 2021, there's a small reminder of this coming up Tuesday and Wednesday this week while Mercury opposes Saturn. And that time requires that we concentrate on details and face up to demanding projects that require much thought and time to accomplish. That's Tuesday and Wednesday. Then overlapping that with Wednesday and Thursday, August 2 and 3, there's a little bit of a rough passage with a sequence of lunar aspects: Moon square Uranus, opposition Venus, and then the moon moves into Pisces and makes a conjunction to Saturn and an opposition to Mars. Oh yes, reminding us of that Mars-Saturn business from July 2021. So that's also in the works for the Wednesday-Thursday period, August 2 and 3. And so summing that up all together, what you probably will see is a period from Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of some mental tension, concerns, kind of tangling with questions or a conundrum that you can't quite figure out that will eventually move. But, it's that kind of energy. Emotional restlessness, possibly even anxiety. It's not permanent. Breathe, relax, use your herbal allies, get outside, meditate, and get perspective on this, because it could be a bit of a challenging passage. Friday and Saturday, August 5 and 6, are smooth sailing astrologically, so your relief is quick at hand. And then we have an interesting arrangement for Saturday and Sunday this week, Saturday and Sunday being August 5 and 6, when the Sun at 14 degrees of Leo makes an exact square to Jupiter at 14 degrees of Taurus. That combination will activate everyone to expand their visions of what they can do and think about the outside possibilities for activity, for thinking, for creativity, for all the things that are important to us. It's an impetus to expand our empires. That's on Saturday and Sunday, August 5 and 6. So that's a little bit of an insight into the way that the energies are feeling now. And I would say that it feels to me like we're in a somewhat gentler frame of mind or frame of experience or context now than we were about 2 weeks ago. We're in a gentler frame. So, that means we're not going to be as rattled and as shaken and upset and thrown to the wind as we might have felt just a couple of weeks ago. And it's a good thing to take advantage of this now, this relative peace now, because in later August, we have quite some changes coming with retrograde Mercury. So now is the time to use your serenity to organize your thoughts and your activities and get set for a challenging month ahead. I'll be back in just a moment with more information on the astrology of ufology.
This is Margie Kay inviting you to check out the latest edition of Onyx News Magazine with thought-provoking articles about UFOs, extraterrestrials, cryptids, consciousness, and amazing photos of anomalous objects and more. And there's always a feature article by our managing editor, Lee Spiegel. Get a free digital issue with your free subscription to the UNX network, or get a printed copy with your X Club Gold subscription in the U.S. Visit unxnetwork.com to see details. That's unxnetwork.com.
Welcome back, Star Friends. Hey, that's some good music on that ad break, huh? Don't you think? I always enjoy it when we get to that part. I get to groove a little bit and enjoy that fantastic rhythm to that music there. Well, in this segment, we're going to be taking a look at the astrology behind UFO experiences and related NDE experiences. This week's featured figure in ufology is our MUFON beloved Mindy Tautfest, who everybody knows very well. And if you've been looking at this program for a time, you know her well. You know of her work, you know of her writing, you know of her work with MUFON and the Oklahoma MUFON organization. Well, Mindy has just recently published a magnificent book. It's titled Dying to Meet Them. Yes, there's the cover right there, Dying to Meet Them. This magnificent book has been just recently published by Margie K through UNX Publishing. And this book has a lot of interesting information in it for everybody. It's about Mindy's personal experience in a near-death experience and her realization of the similarities between the NDE experience and the UFO experience, especially in regard to people who are profoundly affected psychologically by their UFO contacts, or maybe even go into the craft and experience time with beings from other worlds. With that comes a lot of change to the human mind and a whole experience of time and space as fluid and nowhere as restrictive as what we have going on here on planet Earth most of the time. So it's a real shift in consciousness. Now, Mindy, astrologically, comes by her willingness to explore the unknown quite naturally. She was born on April 3, 1979. So, as many of you will have figured out by the time I've said that, she's a sun sign Aries. And you know, the sun sign Aries temperament is courageous and willing to pioneer and go where few have ever gone before. It's a fearless sign for the most part, and willing to put itself at the edge, the leading edge of existence and human destiny to find out what's just beyond the known. Right. So April 3, 1979, Mindy was born, and that places her sun at her SUN, astrologically, at the 13th degree of Aries. And what's interesting about that is that it's in an exact opposition with Pluto in her chart. Well, I should not say exact. It's in a close opposition with Pluto in her chart, which is located at 18 degrees of Libra. The signs Aries and Libra are on opposite sides of the zodiac. So they're opposition signs, meaning the relation between them is about 180 degrees, half the circle being 360 degrees. So half is about 180, or it is 180. And these two bodies were about 180 degrees separated at the time that Mindy beamed down from the higher dimensions to take on this new incarnation that would be called Mindy Tautfest. That was on April 3, 1979, is when she beamed down with the sun at 13 of Aries, opposed by Pluto at 18 of Libra. The bodies were on the opposite sides of the earth as she was beaming into incarnation. So interestingly, she has what we call a Sun-Pluto opposition in her own personal astrology. Why is that important? Well, it's important for someone who eventually will tell the story of a near-death experience, because Pluto is the god of the dead. Pluto, astrologically, has its roots in the Greek god Hades, who was the regent of the underworld, where the souls of the dead went, according to Greek mythology, for their time of psychospiritual self-facing and catharsis and purification and renewal before having an opportunity for yet another life. That was the region of Hades, according to Greek mythology. Greek mythology was kind of picked up whole by the later Roman civilization and the names given from the Latin language, and that figure of Hades became Pluto. And then that name is used for the planet that was discovered in 1930. All of the planets have been named according to the mythological understandings of the ancients. Why? Well, because the ancients thought that the stars and the planets were, in fact, deities worthy of being honored and paid attention to. Pluto was amongst them. In astrology, it's still a planet, no matter what NASA says. We're going to continue using, as astrologers, we're going to continue using Pluto as a significant astrological symbol and archetype. So this is just one of the many significant arrangements in Mindy's personal astrology, but she does have the sun opposite Pluto. Can you hear me now? Am I on? Yes. Okay. I have to keep talking about Mindy. I'm not quite ready to talk about long-term trends yet, because Mindy's Sun-Pluto opposition is very much like a portion of the personal astrology of Travis Walton, who is also a UFO experiencer. Now, Travis was born a long time before Mindy was. He was born on February 10, 1953. And his sun is located at 22 degrees of Aquarius. At that time, Pluto was in the sign of Leo. The day he was born, it was at 22 degrees of Leo. So he has a precise Sun-Pluto opposition. So both of these important experiencers have Sun-Pluto oppositions in their personal astrologies. Travis Walton's is from 22 Aquarius to 22 Leo. Mindy Tautfest's is from 13 Aries to 18 Libra, which is still astrologically close enough to be considered in operation. So for both of these charts, the power of Pluto is very strong. And who is Pluto? Well, the regent of the world of the dead. Yeah. So where is the world of the dead? It's beyond the veil, in the next dimension where souls exist that are not in physical incarnation. It's not as though they don't exist. They do exist, but in a different dimension. And that's where Pluto has his domain, that, or perhaps I should say that is the domain that does belong to Pluto astrologically. Interestingly, when Travis Walton had his UFO experience, which, as Mindy had points out in her book, is similar to NDE's, his own Sun and Pluto were being activated by the transiting lunar nodes. So not only does he have Sun opposite Pluto in his chart, but he had that particular part of his chart being activated intensively on November 5, 1975, when he had his extraordinary experience. Now, what about Mindy? Mindy did too. On November 8, 2016, when she had her extraordinary experience, which led to the writing of her now newly released book, transiting Pluto was activating her Sun-Pluto opposition. It stood at 15 degrees of Capricorn, just past the exact square to the Sun and just approaching the exact square to her Pluto. So Pluto is very involved in every way you look at it, every which way you look at it, in the personal astrologies of these two experiencers and the times of their critical moments. So that's what we have on our table to think about in terms of the astrology standing behind some of these powerful experiences. Now, there's something else. There are a couple of well-known historical UFO encounters which occurred also with the Sun opposite Pluto. The first that I'd like to mention is from the year 1973. It occurred in Piedmont, Missouri on March 21st, 1973, when the Sun stood at 1 degree of Aries and Pluto 3 degrees of Libra. So that's close enough to be in opposition. And there was a lot that followed that when the Sun was in the exact opposition to Pluto. That whole period of time has recently been described in full in a wonderful book published by UNX Publishing. It's the 50th anniversary of the Piedmont, Missouri UFO flap, available on Amazon. And you can read about the 500 sightings and extraordinary paranormal events that tested the minds and belief constructs of the people in that area in the wonderful book that Margie and Debbie Ziegelmeyer put together on this particular flap situation. Well, that all started up when the Sun was opposite Pluto that year. Just a year later, there was another extraordinary UFO encounter in another part of the world. This was 100 miles west of Madrid, Spain, and it was a brief encounter, but it happened when a traveling diplomat who was, I think, in a limousine traveling on a highway happened to look up and see craft near the highway surrounded by 6-foot-tall alien beings. The sun stood at 5 degrees of Aries and Pluto at 5 degrees of Libra. So you can see these two interesting events were also influenced by a similar configuration. So whether we see it in the individual chart or in the general transits of a moment, the Sun-Pluto opposition is deeply connected to paranormal and ufological events. Now, Race, I will be right back with more on long-term trends. Welcome back, Star Friends. Our topic for the remainder of the show is long-term trends and a perspective on world events here on planet Earth that I think you may need as you are adjusting to headlines and things that you read and hear about that have to do with the economy and material security. I know that Star Friends are very concerned with the evolution of human consciousness, generally speaking, with the possibility for contact with extraterrestrials and UFOs. Yeah, we're all hoping to get some of the good stuff, some knowledge, some understanding, some inspiration, and none of the bad stuff from an encounter. We're interested in just the disclosure process and recent events in Washington, D.C. and congressional hearings, and possibly breakthroughs to higher dimensions. All of these thoughts are with us all the time. We're thinking about these issues and trying to get a grip so we can plot out our own approach to living here on planet Earth. The astrological factor that I would like to bring to your attention as important in understanding what's going on now is something that I've talked about in other episodes, but I want to return to tonight, and that's the passage of the planet Uranus through the portion of the ecliptic, which we call Taurus. So transiting Uranus through Taurus, which is in effect from May of 2018 through June of 2025. Again, that's Uranus, the planet Uranus, through the sign of Taurus from May 2018 through June of 2025. That's a period of about 7 years, which is a period of time that is average for Uranus to move through a sign. Other planetary bodies take other periods of time to get through a sign. Uranus goes around the entire zodiac in about 84 years, moving through each sign of the zodiac in about 7 years apiece. So 7 times 12 is 84, and that's your entire Uranus cycle. So you could say that once every 84 years, Uranus enters Taurus. And it most recently did that, as I said, in May of 2018. So we're now about 2/3 of the way through the process of the action of Uranus upon Taurus. What's important to understand about this is that the astrological, psychospiritual effects of the planet Uranus and the astrological, psychospiritual effects of the sign Taurus are very different. Uranus connotes and deals with that which is immediate, spontaneous, instantaneous, the speed of light or faster, sudden understandings, realizations, the capacity to leap beyond the labors of logic and to glimpse into the intuitive world with a sudden clarity of comprehensive understanding. That's Uranus. It's got to do with independent thinking, thinking outside of the box. It has to do with the rebellion against conformity, against conventional thinking, against the dead ways of the old past that do not serve the vibrant nature of humanity. It's anti-establishment. You know, it's dissident. raises questions. It differs with the dominant paradigm. It agitates against authoritarian measures. That's Uranus for you. What about Taurus? Placid. It loves comfort. And who doesn't? Good food, financial security, all the pleasing things of life. We need that. It's connected with nature and the productivity of the soil and the reproductivity of the plant kingdom, the animal kingdom, the human kingdom. And Taurus is an important function in the zodiac. There's nothing wrong with it because it's different from Uranus. It just is different. Uranus is way out there. Taurus is right down here on the ground. Uranus is all about the possibilities and the outside eventualities, or the quantum universe. Taurus is right here at the dinner table, with the potatoes and the for some people it'll be meat or fish. For me it's kefir. Rich food, cookies, sweets, cakes, things that we like to eat, we probably shouldn't, all the indulgences of life. This is the region of Taurus. Physicality, pleasantry, entertainment. So now we've got this agitation of this higher dimension in mixing in with the daily experience of the physical plane with Taurus. And as you can see, that's a difficult combination. It is a difficult combination. And what it means is that our established patterns and habits and routines and ways of doing things are under some considerable attack from the metaphysical influence of Uranus, trying to get us to let go of our repetitive patterns and get us out of our ruts and make us look at something different and innovative and exciting and perhaps challenging. Most everybody has simple routine patterns to live by. Well, Uranus is asking for the reevaluation of all of that. Is that really a good idea? It's saying, are you in, a sort of an automatic pattern there? If you are, hey, you might want to look at that. So all of the aspects of life that we're accustomed to and we've been relying on daily for a sense of order and reassurance get questioned with Uranus and Taurus. Oh, yes, that affects long-established relationships, long-established methods of earning an income, long-established methods of social interaction, long-established methods of funding, long-established methods of distribution of authority or the lack of distribution of authority, long-established methods. That which is entrenched. Uranus in Taurus is working to dislodge, disrupt, and shatter that which is entrenched. It's difficult in every dimension of life. One place that we can see this movement really happening is with the questions about the financial money, or the money flows that support the secret UAP, UFO programs managed by the United
This is Margie Kay inviting you to check out the latest edition of UNX News Magazine with thought-provoking articles about UFOs, extraterrestrials, cryptids, consciousness, and amazing photos of anomalous objects and more. And there's always a feature article by our managing editor, Lee Spiegel. Get a free digital issue with your free subscription to the UNX network, or get a printed copy with your X Club Gold subscription in the U.S. Visit unxnetwork.com to see details. That's unxnetwork.com.